The inhabitants of a small Afghan town notice a drone flying overhead and instantly prepare for an assault. The village is deserted when a group of American soldiers arrives since everyone is inside hiding. The crew continues to move, and when they come across a dubious-looking man carrying a bomb, they quickly surround him and threaten to shoot him if he doesn't put down his weapon. The man initially tries to disregard the danger, but when he realizes the troops are serious, he pulls a revolver and compels them to shoot him dead right away. Jake then tells Colonel Mason about the deceased guy and the device, requesting him approval to defuse it. Jake continues to work on it despite Mason's objections, successfully disarming it. A second hidden explosive detonates at that precise moment, killing the majority of the soldiers. The Americans are soon surrounded by the guys as they emerge from the buildings and open fire, starting a bloody shootout. Only Jake and Mason are still alive as American soldiers are dying all around them. When Jake tries to follow his colonel, the enemy almost shoots him, but Mason intervenes just in time to avoid being hit by a helicopter. 5 years later, Jake is taking PTSD medication and doing his best to adjust to a new life as a civilian. At his new employment, where he must put an extra effort to cope with some entitled customers, he works at an auto shop owned by Earl. Jake returns home after work to spend time with his family. He constantly makes an effort to maintain a positive attitude for his son, but when his wife brings up their numerous outstanding debts, things become unpleasant. Jake, though, assures her that he will handle things as usual. When Jake tucks his son into bed, he tells a tale and shows a photo of his former squad, mentioning the fact that Mason was present at the hospital when the child was born. Mason asks Jake if he's ever killed anyone, and Jake bemoans the fact that they haven't spoken in a while. Jake then sidesteps the topic. When Jake arrives at work the following day, he is met by some thugs who assert that Earl owes them money. The group's leader Fresh orders his men to attack Jake when he tries to evict them, but Jake easily defeats them all with a wrench. Fresh commands him to stop by displaying his gun, and after promising a second round in the future, he departs with his group. After that, Jake confronts Earl, who admits he was once a member of a gang as well but was fortunate enough to escape and create a place he could call home. Jake won't have to worry about his family because Earl assures him that he would always safeguard his neighborhood. When Jake phones his family to check on them since he feels like the war is still going on, his wife tells him he should have called the police instead of getting involved. When Jake arrives home later that night, Fresh is talking about payback in his car before driving off. Jake rushes inside the house in a panic and is horrified to find his family dead. He shouts and sobs as he experiences a complete collapse. The police attempt to question Jake when they come a little while later, but Jake snaps and drives off in his truck. While searching the city for Fresh's automobile, he keeps thinking about his favorite family moments. After eventually locating the vehicle outside a risque club, Jake goes inside carrying a revolver and immediately starts shooting each and every member of the gang. The man explains that he didn't intend to kill Jake's family but was forced to when he is ready to kill Fresh. Fresh is also shot, and this has no effect on Jake's decision. Jake's PTSD worsens as he spends the most of each day imagining Fresh murdering his family as he is serving his jail sentence for his crime 5 months later. Mason pays Jake an unexpected visit one day and offers to assist revive the investigation. Jake, however, declines because he feels like he belongs there and reiterates what he told the judge. He got his retribution and now has zero regret. In fact, he'd do it again. Jake then directs the guard to take Mason back to his cell and tells him never to come back. That evening, Jake couldn't help but think back to his time in the army and the way Mason had retired after saving his life. Later, a man named Ramsey pays Jake a visit and explains that he is the leader of a secret task team. Jake, though, won't allow him continue and once more requests that the guard take him back. Later that night, as Jake is daydreaming about his family, a group of masked men suddenly storm into his cell, sedate him, and take him away. Later, when Jake awakens, he finds himself outside of prison and learns that Ramsey was his kidnapper. Ramsey admits that he has been keeping an eye on Jake for a while and is impressed by his track record. Because Section 8 doesn't follow the rules, Ramsey believes they can restore Jake's sense of direction. As a finishing touch, Ramsey adds that Jake's son would prefer to view him as a hero rather than a prisoner, leading Jake to finally agree to join. Ramsey presents Jake to the rest of the team, Elias, Ajax, Brunner, and Mueller, after they arrive in Washington, D.C. Then, After revealing that they have 8 spies in Washington and 8 elsewhere in the world, he gives him a tour of what he calls the Batcave. The State Department and the NSA give them commands, which are always concerned with dealing with risks to national security. Mueller will serve as Jake's watcher and accompany him on all missions while he is still a newcomer and until he acquires seniority. Because Jake is dead to the rest of the world, he will also be given a bank account, a city flat, a car, a backstory, and an alias. After that, Ramsey has to depart, so it's up to the crew to initiate Jake. Ajax begins to agitate him by shoving him and punching him. Jake tries to avoid them all and refuses to engage in combat, but Ajax's aggressiveness causes Jake to lose his cool. He nearly stabs Ajax in the eye with a pen as he pushes him to the ground, but he quickly cools off after remembering his family. After that, Jake departs. An irate Ajax argues that because Jake displayed fear, he shouldn't be with them, but Mueller disagrees. Later, while flying, Jake and Mueller talk about Jake's first mission. Castillo, a contractor in the defense industry who also deals weapons, is the target. Jake's mission is to obtain the schematics and eliminate Castillo and his guys since he recently acquired some deadly schematics that he intends to sell to the Russians. Jake doesn't want to kill again after realizing they are effectively a gang of hitmen. The two arrive in Mexico in the evening, when they discover Castillo preparing to have a conversation with a Russian negotiator in a warehouse. Jake moves covertly and kills a guard while Castillo and the Russian quarrel. The noise sets both gangs against one another since they believe the other is setting them up, and their disagreement quickly develops into a full-fledged shootout as a result. The conflict ultimately comes to an end when the gang members start to perish one by one, and even cause a car to explode. Jake then emerges and exterminates every survivor before peering inside the car, where 2 terrified women were hiding. They are ignored by Jake, who then grabs the schematics and leaves. Ramsey reprimands Jake for jeopardizing the integrity of their objective by keeping those 2 women alive later at the base. Ramsey threatens to send Jake back to prison if he doesn't comply with Jake's attempts to convey that they were victims, and that Ramsey was indifferent to human life. When Jake is eventually fired, Mueller tells Ramsey that Jake performed well, but Ramsey is still unsure. Then Ajax interjects and suggests that Ramsey erred. Ramsey makes a call to a man named Locke after being left alone. The following day in Nevada, the mercenary Locke raids a hotel, killing a few staff members before entering a room and frightening the women away before facing his victim. The man tries to bribe Locke with a sizable sum of money because he is aware that Ramsey dispatched Locke, but Locke murders him nevertheless. Locke then makes his getaway through the hotel's casino, but the guards quickly grow suspicious and pursue him. Locke quickly disarms every guard who approaches before launching into a sprint, smashing everything in his path and dispatching the guards who pursue him. He eventually pulls a gun and fires a few rounds into the gathering of gamblers to incite fear, and he also kills a guard before leaving and steals a car to flee. Jake is horrified to discover a frame containing a number of photos from his time in Afghanistan when he moves into the new home. He recalls a discussion he had with Mason in which Jake made excuses for hurting himself, and Mason made sure to console him. Later, when Mueller joins him at the bar for a drink, Jake tries to elicit some information from her. Ramsey explains that she used to be in the army and assaulted a commander officer who chastised her. Mueller doesn't know anything about Ramsey. Later, Ramsey assigns them a new task: assassinate Senator Graham, a traitor to the nation who has bought the release of numerous prisoners, and retrieve all digital evidence related to a crucial case. Ramsey warns everyone, especially Jake, that security will be extremely strict and that they must fight back. The trio arrives to Graham's event in California a short while later while posing as landscapers. When security learns of Mueller's intrusion and her plan to kill every guard she can locate, they dispatch a van to pick up Graham. Jake rushes after Graham while Mueller breaks into the senator's computer and fires a couple ineffective shots. Since the van is moving too quickly for him to keep up, Jake takes a diversion by leaping over a hill and successfully blocks the road. Jake immediately kills the guard who attempted to stop him before approaching Graham, who begs for his life while claiming to have a family. Suddenly overcome by memories, Jake chooses to keep Graham alive. When the team arrives, Ajax kills Graham and then cautions Jake not to hesitate. Later, while seeing images and drinking at home, Jake battles his guilt and sobs. He hides to prevent them from entering his house when he suddenly sees masked men running outside his window. Although the men search every room for him, Jake is able to escape by the back door. Jake visits Mason the following day and tells him everything that happened. Mason says he was aware that the genuine Section 8 had been dissolved in the 1990s and that the current iteration consists solely of disgraced ex-agents from the CIA, FBI, and other agencies. Jake is in grave danger if he flees Section 8 because they even have influential connections in Washington. Mason admits he's never heard of Ramsey and says he'll phone some people. He also agrees to give Jake some money and a rifle as assistance. When Jake comes back to his hometown, Ramsey calls and asks to meet up to work things out. Jake declines. Ramsey then requests that Mueller send the order to assassinate Jake to Locke, who is currently hiding in Argentina. Later, when talking about the tragedy with his son's best friend, Jake finds that, prior to his family's murder, Fresh had been spotted with individuals wearing black suits, much like the secret agents depicted in comic books. Jake throws the child into a store before sprinting away before Locke arrives and starts firing before he can acquire any more information. As Locke murders a few innocent bystanders, panic grips the neighborhood. The police then show up, only for Locke to shoot them as well. Jake is able to flee due to the distraction, so Locke steals a police vehicle and searches for him, while calling Ramsey to explain what transpired. Jake is hiding out in Earl's store in the evening while reflecting on how Earl reared him after his parents passed away. Jake and Earl quickly gather some weapons to defend themselves when the computer abruptly starts to beep to signal the team's arrival. Elias almost shoots Jake, but Earl dispatches him without delay. Then Brunner leaps on Jake, and the two start to fight on top of a car. Suddenly, Ajax opens fire on them. Jake takes advantage of the opportunity to attack Brunner with a screwdriver as he turns around to scold at him for being careless. Jake uses the body as a shield and grabs his gun to start firing back when Ajax starts firing again, but he quickly runs out of ammunition. Ajax still has some, but deliberately wastes them because he wants to rematch Jake in hand-to-hand combat to establish his superiority. The guys start trading blows around the store, and when Ajax tries to knife Jake, Mueller shoots him instead. After that, Jake makes sure Earl is okay and gives him his car keys so he may flee because the police are on their way. Mueller claims she saved Jake later in the car because she also wants to leave Section 8. Jake requests to be driven to Ramsey's accommodation since he doesn't believe he can trust her. The following day, the two arrive in Montana and attempt to sneak through a forest to reach Ramsey's cabin. However, Jake is suddenly knocked out as he turns around. Jake wakes up chained to a chair in a room with Ramsey and Mueller after having another dream about his family. Mueller had been working with Ramsey to set up this trap for Jake. When Mason enters the meeting and Ramsey announces that he has a surprise for Jake, Jake is horrified to discover that Mason has also been working with Ramsey. Mason provided them with the location of Jake because the organization needed an agent with his qualifications. Hence, they were the ones that paid Fresh to kill his family. While Mason just claims that Jake was wasting his talent on automobiles and a kid, Jake can't believe that Mason has deceived him. After that, everyone leaves Jake alone as Mason gives Ramsey and Mueller the agreed-upon sum of money. Mason agrees with Ramsey when he suggests that they should murder Jake because he is a liability, but he takes a closer look. Mason visits Jake and frees him before admitting that he had been recruited to destroy Section 8 from the inside, and now he needs Jake to assist him in completing the task, while Mueller counts the money. Mason then deliberately sets off the alarm, and when two guards go to investigate, they are promptly shot and killed. As they move to find Ramsey, other men start approaching, and the two shoot each one. As gunshots decimate their surrounds, another shootout breaks out. When Ramsey notices them, he hides with Mueller and offers Jake the money from Mason. Ramsey then tries to persuade Jake that everything is Mason's fault, but Jake doesn't believe him after he rejects with a shot. Mueller creeps around and tries to shoot Jake while they are arguing, but Mason urges him to move and takes the shot instead, knocking Mueller to the ground. Ramsey tries to take the money as Jake goes to check on his friend, but Jake scares him off with a few shots. Mason then urges Jake to finish the work before passing away. Mueller steps in at that point and attempts to shoot Jake, but she runs out of ammunition, so they begin grappling instead. After a few blows are exchanged, Mason stabs Jake in the shoulder, but he takes advantage of the opportunity to kill her by using her own hand against her. After that, when Jake gets outside, he sees Ramsey driving away in a car. He decides to follow him by stealing a car. Both guys open fire while driving erratically, and Ramsey becomes so preoccupied that he crashes. Ramsey taunts Jake for pausing when he approaches the wreck, and Jake eventually kills him. The police take Jake to meet General Savoy, for whom Mason was working, in the evening. Jake denies Savoy's offer, claiming that he has nothing to fight for, and instead agrees to join his squad in exchange for a job and a fresh start. Savoy offers him his card just in case. Later, when Jake arrives home, Locke is waiting for him because he still has work to do to uphold his reputation. Soon a hand-to-hand battle breaks out, and both men display incredible fighting prowess while attacking with each available furniture or object in the room. Both of them grab knives as the altercation proceeds into the kitchen, and they continue stabbing each other until Locke tosses Jake to the ground. As a result, Jake may get his gun back and finally shoot Locke. The following morning, Jake leaves Earl a voicemail thanking him for everything and informing him that he is leaving. Jake observes a woman and her son sharing a tender moment while riding a bus in the meantime. As memories of his own family resurface, Jake contacts Savoy to accept his offer and confesses that he does have a cause he wants to fight for. Savoy welcomes him to Section 9 right away.